So, Sammy, I'm sure you've picked up on this by now, but this is really a situation where Caleb Williams has committed to the bit. And now every time he ends a press conference, he does the thing where he's about to leave and then he sneaks back in like this guy right here. He's like, bear down. I love it. Again, we talked about this with Clay Harbaugh. Like, I love this goofball stuff. Like, I think it's hilarious. And I know perhaps he should consort himself like a professional, but at some point, I like to have a guy who's committed to being on the team and loves being a part of the Chicago Bears. And whether this comes back to bite him or not, listen, that remains to be seen. But it's fun having a quarterback who seems like he really enjoys being a Chicago Bear. And as much as I love doing this, and we got a great show for you. So, Sammy, let's not mess around. Why don't we go ahead and start the show?
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Adam Ray.
It's Hester trying to work it back to the middle. Gets past the first wave, and here he goes. It's Hester inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown. And no flag, 92 yards.
The sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
It's Wednesday night. You know what that means? And it's time for Take It to the Rank. Great show lined up for you tonight. We're going to be having Shawne Merriman joining us here later on to talk about Lights Out 17 and get his perspective of Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. It's always good to get outside perspectives. And I thought about this over the last couple of weeks. We've been bringing in fans of other teams. We had Cynthia Freeland come in, and we've had some fans of opposing teams just so we can get a gauge of what's going on. And so when it comes to the Packers, there are three fans who we love. Nick Vial, love him. Tom Grassi, love him. But this guy, listen, don't tell the other two. This one might be my favorite because he loves the Star Wars as I do. He's an 80s music snob. He's lucky that I have not been sent, because I have a text group where I send random videos and I critique them. I know he would love that, but we're going to get his thoughts on the Bears. So without further ado, the founder of Cheesehead TV and a friend of mine, Aaron Nagler, the real Aaron Nagler, not the one who was on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. Aaron, I got to be up. First of all, thanks for being here. We do appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me, Adam.
I will say this: you were for a lot of people already know this, but you were on the Packers schedule release video, and I had a thing where I was watching it, and I go, "Why is Craig Finn?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's Aaron." And I made a joke about it, and I tweeted it to you, and then not a day later, I said, "Hey, by the way, I would love to have you on the show," and you ghosted me. And I was I'm like, holy shit! Did I?
He was really offended by that.
He can't be mad at. I've said worse things to him about that. But no, you went through some. We talked about this offline. But whoo! What a battle to get your account back.
Yes,
it's an ordeal.
It's the Twitter hack of 2024, the great Twitter hack. It was. I felt really bad too, because then when I got the account back, I was desperate to see what my DMs looked like, because I know this dude was trying to sell MacBooks on my name and try to get people's money, etc. So I'm desperately looking, and it was funny to see a couple people from around the NFL community had DM'd me. I was like, "Is this you?" And the guy, of course, was like, "Yes, it's me." No, it was not. But then but I got through those, and then I saw your DM. "Hey, do you want to come on the podcast?" And then I felt bad. That's when I messaged you. I was like, really? Because it was just, I think you literally messaged me the day an hour or two after it happened. So I felt very bad, but I'm very happy to be here now.
No. I'm glad that it all got. So once I knew what was going on, I felt terrible for you, because I knew you were traveling abroad, and I'm like, oh my God. And I know we talked about it before the show, what a terrible ordeal it is. But thankfully, thanks to all the good Samaritans over at SpaceX and X itself who got it. And it's not easy. So
it's not.
It's not easy. And you were MIA, much like Aaron Rodgers is MIA from the Jets. How you feel? Listen,
man.
I know, you have to root. Listen, I rooted for Jay Cutler for a long time, so I know what it's like. Did. How freeing is it now to be you know what? We're done with that. I'm so happy, because we'll talk about Jordan Love in a moment, but it's Jordan Love. I mean, and seems like a great guy. I've liked him since his time at Utah State, but like it has got to be so refreshing to not have to deal with Aaron Rodgers right now.
I interviewed Brian Gutekunst, the general manager of the Green Bay Packers, last night on our show for Cheesehead TV. It took everything inside me not to ask him live. Like, do you ever just see these headlines and think, thank God that's not my problem anymore? Because I know every Packers fan that I know, both online and in real life, is watching this unfold with New York and the Jets and everything. And look, I don't think this is a big deal. I really don't. The whole Rodgers missing minicamp. Clearly, he told them he was going to be gone. They knew he was going to be gone. If anything, it's a solid messaging thing or a lack thereof when this information got out there yesterday. But man, living here in New York, watching the back pages go to town. It's I knew, and that's the thing. As soon as Rodgers was traded here, you knew that was going to happen. That was the perfect marriage as far as like narrative and overblowing storylines. Like that's what the New York media lives for. So to see, this whole kind of episode of Rodgers isn't there and the whole thing blow up. And then not having to deal with it, not having to worry about it, not just being able to shut my computer down and know, I'm not going to get an alert at like 11:30 p.m. that Aaron Rodgers has done XYZ or said whatever. Like, I don't care. I don't have to worry about it. Yeah, that's pretty great. No doubt.
It's interesting because two of the better, most well-run organizations in the NFL, they're the Packers and it's the Steelers. And I don't think, listen, like I can sit here and hate the Packers, but I can admit
I get it, man. No. And that's why I mess with you, because you're real about it. I get it.
Yeah, I'm real. And it's funny because like you think about the Steelers and everything that happened with Antonio Brown once he left. Right. And then the thing with like Favre and Rodgers, everything that happened with them once they left, you're like, you see what it means to be a good organization. Like there is some like, because like these people just didn't become crazy when they left the building. This has been going on for quite some time. So I think it's a testament. How do the Packers do it? How do they do it?
Dealing with it. I think they've done a very good job. And this to give Rodgers props. Like some of this was at his behest and or kind of his spearheading. When he was first coming up, he was very adamant about like keeping things in house and not leaking and not letting things get out to the media. Now, obviously he's become such a monster star that it's hard for like any utterance becomes a story, right? Like that's where we're at now. But back then he was pretty vocal about it too. And I think the Packers have really kind of maybe not glommed onto that, but that is something they really pride themselves in. In fact, Brian mentioned it last night when we were talking to him. It's like internally they do a very good job of somewhat kind of circling the wagons and keeping things in house. And there are always going to be like kind of hints and maybe, parts where you see kind of cracks in the armor, so to speak. But for the most part, most of everything that goes on at 1265 Lombardi is kept inside the building. So they've certainly put up with some stuff behind the scenes and they've puffed up their quarterbacks. And I think some of it is the fandom. I've said this kind of somewhat jokingly, but inside every joke, there's an ounce of truth, right? Throughout this last kind of year where Jordan has suddenly become the guy, right? Because we didn't know going into last year what to expect. But now suddenly it looks like we've got another quarterback, right? And I just kind of, again, somewhat joking, but somewhat serious. Can we just let him play quarterback? Can we just let him be a guy who just throws a football for our favorite team? And yes, I root for him to do whatever he does off the field, like whether it's stuff with his foundation or stuff like supporting his girlfriend. I'm all in on that. I love that for him. But can we as fans just not make him into a demigod no matter what ends up happening? Because it sure feels like the last two guys let it all go to their head. And I'd prefer, can we get through this quarterback and not create just some kind of monster? That would be great.
It's weird because I remember there was some Packers fan, and I can't remember who it was. You might have to remind me because you might know.
Gosh.
Some guy said, if Jordan Love ends up being good, I'm going to be a menace on this app. I don't remember.
I said I'd be insufferable, sir.
Insufferable. That was the word.
But that's about the Packers knowing what they're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so many people were giving the Packers crap. Hell, I had Pat McAfee call me a 50-year-old weirdo because I dared to point out how full of hot air he was when it came to Brian Gutekunst and the plan and the idea of changing from and moving forward with Jordan
Yeah.
Love. Yeah, I am going to be insufferable about the fact that people give the Packers all sorts of crap and they catch all this hell, but it kind of looks like they know what the hell they're doing. So I am insufferable, and I'm going to be insufferable in that regard.
You've kind of earned that because it's difficult. It's difficult to get rid of players that you love,
Exactly.
and there was something.
Well, look
at
Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is a perfect recent example. I mean,
yeah, I wanted to talk about that, but I do like the one thing about the Packers that's the most interesting is like if there is a team that is so steeped in their history, and again, this goes to the Packers, and I think the Bears would be able to lay claim to this too about really leaning into your history. The Steelers do a great job of this. The Packers are one of them. The Lombardi Trophy is named after that organization. Well, the head coach of that organization. Nobody's won more NFL titles than the Packers, but they will get rid of you hey, that's good run. We'll see you later.
Yeah,
and we're on to the next thing. And the Aaron Jones one, like I sit here and I look at Aaron Rodgers. I'm like, okay, that's tough. It's tough for quarterbacks. Devontae Adams. I'm like, you guys kind of go through receivers quite a bit. So I'm like, that's not that bad. I'm like, Aaron Jones was one that shocked me. I was like, whoa, like this. I understand, like this is the way the Packers kind of do business, but I'm like, Aaron Jones was the guy. There's not been a person since James Jones that I've legitimately almost not hate him as a person, but you're like, I'm so mad at this person all the time. And it's because they only can't I don't even know if Aaron Jones is good against other teams. I just know he's great against the Bears. I don't know.
Right.
James Jones had 58 touchdown receptions in his career, 50 against Chicago. It's ridiculous.
At least minimal. Yeah, no. I mean, the Aaron Jones thing did catch me by surprise in a way that most things don't when it comes to how Green Bay operates and how Gutekunst approaches team building, etc. But I will say, I think looking back at it now, I probably should have been a little bit more ready for it, just because the idea of Aaron Jones, and as good as he is, and as good as he was that stretch, right? At the end of last year, those last 5-6 games where 100 yards every game absolutely was a spark plug for the offense. I do think as an organization at some point, you look at it and you're like, well, that's great, but it would have been nice to get a home playoff game, and maybe we would have had one had Aaron Jones been available earlier in the year. And every game, think about it, any Packers game you've watched over the last 5 years, you've noticed at some point everyone online going, where's Aaron Jones? And then there's a shot of a trainer looking at him, and the Packers have, there's no official injury update, but Aaron Jones isn't in the game, so what the hell? And I think the Packers probably got to a point where, okay, you want to get out a year early rather than a year too late. This guy who's clearly a absolute consummate professional and a great player, but he's reaching the end of his kind of tenure, right, in the NFL.
Yeah.
And you can go get a guy like Josh Jacobs, a lot younger, a lot less wear on the tires, etc. I understand again, dispassionately looking at it, I understand the move. It, like I said, though, it still did catch me by surprise.
No, because I always figured too that he would be one that you'd be like, do you take a pay cut? Do you do this? Something to keep him around. And
he had taken a pay cut the year before. I think that's part of the problem. You know what I mean? Like the fact that he had done it just the year prior. But that was always weird to me because I understood that. And then that happened at the last second, because I remember it was literally before, I think it was the tampering period was about to open, right? Yeah. That last moment they agreed to whatever deal that Aaron was playing on this last season. And I thought, okay, that felt dramatic, but at least, we're here. But the whole season we knew they had to address the cap hit that he was about to have in 2024. Yeah. But Brian's saying, oh yeah, he's absolutely going to be back. I thought, okay, so they've clearly talked and they've agreed on some kind of idea of, we're going to take another some kind of, pay cut that'll allow us to lower the cap hit, etc. But then they just outright cut him. And we asked Brian about it last night, and I guess, there was no real event that occurred. It was just they could not reach a place where both sides could agree on the number for Aaron in 2024 in Green Bay. So roll on Josh Jacobs, roll on Marshawn Lloyd, and let's go beat the Bears.
I know that I like Marshawn Lloyd. I wonder, though, with Josh Jacobs, I know he's had some problems with injuries, too. Do you fear, like, one of the great things about the Packers, like, not great, like, for you, not for me, for you, is like, it seems like when you draft guys, they come in and they it feels like they buy in more than somebody who might be a free agent. Do you think that Josh Jacobs is a good fit for everything that's going on there? Because I like that. If I was the Packers, and as well as you guys have drafted over the years, I would have just assumed draft a guy as opposed to bringing a big money player. How's he fitting in with the organization?
I mean, so far it's hard to say just because it's so early and they're in shorts and whatever. But it seems like the idea being they handed him basically the contract they gave Aaron Jones a couple of years ago, right? The fact that he does have some wear and tear, but I think you look at what he did 2 years ago, the guy in Matt LaFleur's offense should absolutely flourish. And if you look at his contract, the contract he did sign in Green Bay, they can get out of it in 1 year. Like next offseason, they could get out of it if they so desired. I don't think that's the plan, but there's definitely a lever they can pull where they can be like, okay, we've seen enough from Marshawn Lloyd to know, okay, that's our guy. And then away they go. Again, I don't think that's the plan, but the opportunity will be available if they decide to go that route and or Lloyd shows like, oh yeah, he's ready for it. Or who knows, maybe AJ Dillon finds another gear, something that eluded him last season. But, I'm not too worried about it. And again, Josh Jacobs, I know he had a disappointing 2023. I think some of that is him, but some of that is what was working or not working in front of him along the offensive line. I think, you put him in LaFleur's offense, especially in the passing game. I think some people are going to be surprised at how kind of explosive and or productive he's going to be in Green Bay in 2024.
Man, you're getting me thinking about that in a fantasy perspective. But
I'm
also
just saying, man. Yeah, I think he's a great fantasy play this year. I really do. Interesting.
All right. I also Jordan Love came out talking about the fact that there's no number one wide receiver, how that's a thing, which I thought, I thought of it because I was like, you know what? Over a couple of years ago, I remember watching the Packers and I said, you know what's holding this team back? Devontae Adams. Once they get rid of him, this team's going to take off. They're going to be so good once they get rid of Adams. What did you make of what he was? I get the spirit of what he's saying. And there's a lot of annoying, like looking at these Packers, and I wrote this in my piece that's on NFL.com right now, the state of the franchise, about Dontavian Wicks, is he reminds me of that James Jones guy who's just like, oh God, why is this guy beating us type of thing. Well, what do you make of that? What do you think? What do you make of this Packers receiving room? Because he's right. There's not a superstar like Jordy Nelson or Devontae Adams, but they got some pretty good talent there.
Yeah, pretty good. I've got some really high ceilings is what they've got. And I'm glad you brought up your NFL.com piece because I will take you to task on that in a little bit here. I love that they let you write it. They know who I write
all 32. I do all 32 of them.
Yeah,
it's my thing.
You're like the Supreme Court. You should be recused from being able to write about the Green Bay Packers. But anyway, I digress.
My wife was hanging a Packers flag upside down outside of the house.
Well played. Now, here's the thing. Okay. Yes, as far as production so far, nobody in that room screams number one wide receiver. But I will say Christian Watson is a number one wide receiver waiting to happen. He just has to stay on the field. He's special. We've all seen it. Everyone wants to point to all the time he's missed. And of course, that's frustrating. No one's more frustrated than Christian himself. But he's the number one wideout just waiting to play 17 games, right? Yeah. And if and when that happens, you're going to see the production. There's zero doubt about it. Like you've already seen that Jordan's like very comfortable giving him the ball early and often, no matter what the coverage is, and like that's the other thing. Matt LaFleur has shown repeatedly that he'll draw stuff up for him. But that said, I buy Jordan Love 100% when he says we don't need a number one wide receiver. Look at what they did last year down the stretch. As far as if you're a defensive coordinator, where is your focus? Who are you rolling coverage to? What are you trying to take away? because I promise you, going into that playoff game, Dan Quinn down in Dallas was like, well, we got to keep Christian Watson under control and we'll be fine. And then Romeo Dobbs comes out and just blows the place apart, Like, you just don't know as a coordinator where the pain is going to come from. It could be Jaden Reed. It could be Wicks. It could be anybody from week to week. So, yeah, I mean, right now, I keep talking about this on Cheesehead TV. The Packers are in like a 2-year window where we've talked a lot as NFL media people taking advantage of the rookie quarterback contract, right?
Right.
Well, the Packers are about to flip that on its head. Like, they're going to pay Jordan Love $1 bajillion, but they're going to have a receiving core that goes 4, even 5, 6 deep that they're paying roughly $10 million total. So that's obviously going to change in a couple of years when these guys have to start getting paid. But right now, if you're the Packers, you're going to take advantage of that. And I don't think there's a need to say we need to feed this guy 8-9 touches a game. Like, no, just whatever the defense presents, go take advantage of it.
Yeah, you don't need to make the deal where you're bringing in AJ Brown or somebody like that. You're feeling comfortable, and let's talk about it though, because you talk about that window. I wrote about this on NFL.com. I said Jordan Love looked very good. But what is the like realistic? There are there's a fringe group of fans that are just going to be a little too unrealistic. I fall into that category for the Bears. But what about you? What is the realistic expectation for the Packers? Last year, won 9 games, got into the playoffs, the change at defensive coordinator, a full season of Jordan Love. Now he's ready to go. What is a reasonable expectation for the Packers?
Oh, well, they should challenge for and or win the division, first of all, right? I mean, there's no doubt about that. And they should make a run in the playoffs. Now, should they be in the Super Bowl? I think there's a chance that it happens. No question about it. They've got the talent. The defense is a big question mark, though. I love the idea of Jeff Hafley. I love the idea of a new scheme and a new approach, but we don't really know. I mean, Hafley, his track record, you look at it and it's like, where do you draw from to say, I have utmost confidence that this defense is going to be XYZ in the NFL, I'm not questioning his bona fides. He clearly knows ball. He clearly knows defense, especially defensive back play. But man, I don't know. So I think if there is an expectation of a quote Super Bowl run, I would think it comes in the next couple of years, hopefully, if you're a Packers fan. But this year in 2024, the step forward for me is taking control kind of back of the division, right? Like, because the Lions, they're legit, man. Like, I ain't
a real good team,
deny it, and I do think the Bears have positioned themselves well, as much as I hate to say that. Clearly, you better, if you've got all that capital, both draft and free agent dollars, to be able to go and build your team. I hope you do. But yeah, no, this is, for me, this 2024 for the Packers, the first goal is taking control of the division. And then, yes, they should have a home playoff game. They should make a run. But, man, we know that the NFL every year, you never know how the ball is going to bounce, how injuries will occur, etc. But, yeah, to me, that's the baseline. And then should they be thinking Super Bowl? 100%. No question about it. They've got the talent. And I love it because, I mean, all these teams around the league that have like spent a decade plus or so many years without getting to the playoffs, let alone winning a playoff game. The Packers spent, I think, like roughly 7 games rebuilding.
An hour.
And then they were back
one half. One half
like
against the Saints, rebuilding.
Half a season, that's our rebuild, and now we're back and we're winning playoff games and we're in the mix. I love it.
So wasn't I fair? But what I felt like I was pretty fair.
You were. I just know that you did that because you're setting up the expectation of, if they don't win the Super Bowl, it's a failure, which is completely ridiculous. But I know you know that, and it's fine. But
I know that.
I know where you're coming from.
But I gotta tweak the fans a little bit. I actually, because the Bears piece will be
ranked
the Bears
a little
piece,
bit.
The Bears piece.
You're the master Packers fan troller. There have been many trolls for Packers fans in the kind of internet era. You, sir, are the master. You're the master.
I feel I was thinking about that too, and I know that next year the draft is going to be in Green Bay.
Sir. You coming?
The Bears need to have me out there. I need to be because I think that I could draw in the heel heat.
It would be amazing. It would be WWE.
Like Shawn Michaels in Canada during the 90s.
That would be incredible. Yes,
we got to get in the Bears' ear and we got to figure that out. Cut
Hell,
that
I'll
out,
talk
Sammy.
to the Packers. I'll talk to the Packers about getting you
The
out there.
Packers
That'd
should
be
want to do
amazing.
that. Yeah, just to let everybody boo me and do it, because it is a lot of fun. And
pure entertainment value. It'd be incredible.
And I will, and obviously in those pieces you do like new faces and everything, and talking about this.
Right.
For the Bears one, they sent it back to me. They're like, you can't write this. Like you cannot put it. Like I wrote Simone Biles as new face to know in Chicago. Simone Biles, and I said she's so happy to be in Chicago.
Yeah, but she was so happy to be in Green Bay.
Immediately taking shots at Green Bay. She's like, finally, I can take a direct flight to see my husband play football. Right. I'm like, oh, dang, girl.
Well, if she lived in New York, she could fly direct to Appleton. Thank you very much.
Oh, my goodness.
Allegiant Air.
I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, she gets it. I'm like, okay, cool. Like,
I can't believe they're going to let you write that. I mean,
I know.
I mean, I can and I can't. I mean, that's perfect. That's hilarious. But
no, because we have like the original content editor is a Chicago person, so he's off. He's a little sensitive to it. Like,
I get it.
Because then he's like, if somebody gets mad, and I know like Mark Murphy doesn't like me, so like when they get a call, when Todd Sperry,
we have that in common, so that's good.
There it is. When Todd Sperry gets a call. And then he'll look at the Chicago-based. He's not Chicago-based. He lives out here, but they'll look at it and be like, "Hey, you guys shouldn't have done that. Now you've upset them." And it's like, and it's one of the golden franchises that we can't say anything bad about. You should have seen the original cut. No, I'm kidding. I know. But like I say this too, and it is as much fun as I have poking fun at the Packers. There is a lot of like, I guess I don't know if envy is the right word, but I said it before. Like it's a well-run organization. And I want to talk a little bit right now about the Bears because I understand, regardless of whether Caleb Williams is good or not, like that'll play out over the next couple of years. My whole contention has been that the Chicago Bears organization, the way they're running things, the way Ryan Poles is running things, regardless of whether it works out or not, that's not what I'm saying. I feel like the organization feels different. It's not like, it's the Bears. They're they're dumb. They're going to do the wrong thing. It feels like I feel like what they've done, like you look at the process, you're like, I kind of see what they got going on. I'm obviously an optimist, but what about you? What do you think? Do you look at and I'm not saying you think the Bears are going to win the Super Bowl, but do you think like the organization's changed a little bit?
Okay, it's amazing what a kind of, I don't know, litmus test this season is going to be, right? Because of the fact of how they've positioned themselves with the first overall picks and the way they have acquired a lot of talent. And I've understood what Poles has done as far as the trades he's made, like the trade deadline trades he's made. And look, that defense back half of last year after the trade deadline, legit, right? Like that's a problem. That's going to be a problem. That's going to be a tough out week in and week out. The Caleb Williams thing is going to be interesting because I don't know a whole lot about, what kind of offense they're implementing and what they're going to ask him to do. They've clearly tried to surround him with talent. That's very clear. The offensive line, is that going to be up to snuff? Is the run game going to work? Like to take the pressure off a young quarterback? Is the offensive coordinator be committed to the run? Like that's all like stuff that's going to be answered throughout the season and these next couple of years. If I'm being honest, I look at the Bears like, okay, yes, Poles has been given the leash, so to speak, like the rope to go and maybe either, yes, pull them out of this kind of morass they've been in for a couple decades, or to hang himself, because it's like nothing really has changed other than, we've got a head of football now who's talking about the Kevin Warren talking about like the new stadium and all of that. Mm-hmm. But the McCaskies are still there, right? They're still kind of going with whatever kind of ebb and flow they feel every offseason, rather than, it doesn't feel like there's much of a long-term view. It just feels like, okay, well, that we understand what he's doing, so we're going to let him stick around for now. But I tell you what, if we have another losing season, we're out of here. Like, I don't know. Like, look, I've got nothing but respect for the Bears franchise because of the history And you were talking earlier about how the Packers like lean into their history, which, yeah, they do. I mean, 100%, no question about it.
Right.
I'm always surprised that the Bears don't do more of it. And I know the joke, the running thing online, especially, is the 85 Bears, right? But the Bears have existed for 100 years. Like, there's a lot of great history in not only Chicago, but obviously like the Bears franchise as a whole. Like, I'm always surprised they don't lean into that more. Like, I guess I understand that they want to keep the main thing, and they don't want people talking about the fact that they haven't won a Super Bowl since 85. Like, I get that, but it just feels like there's a lot there to mine that they just leave on the table. And I don't know if that's the McCaskies or what, but you talk about my view of the Bears. That's how I'm seeing them.
Well, they do have a film series, and it's, 1920, talking about when the team started and everything like that. But there are key moments, like destroying the Packers 73, or not the Packers, excuse me, the Washington football franchise, 73-0 in an NFL title game, and things like that. But there's been small things that the Bears have done that they haven't done before. Like when they brought in Ian Cunningham, they never had an assistant GM. That was one of the things Ryan Pace actually wanted to do, and the Bears were like, nah. But then they kind of relented. Right. Even the fact that Kevin Warren's trying to get a new stadium, I think, is significant, because that doesn't seem like something the Bears would have done. Even this year,
they might play indoors though. I can't believe it. I can't believe it, dude.
They got to though.
Bears in a dome. Do they got to though? Do they?
They do.
I don't know. They
do.
Man.
This is the thing, and like you guys went through this, and you guys should be figuring out a way to put a roof over your stadium.
No.
Because my dad was all about bear weather. And then in his words, he's like, when that soft behind Joe Montana came up here in the playoffs and destroyed us, he's like, that was the end of bear weather.
I know. Everyone's talked about the 49ers coming into Lambeau in the freezing cold and beating the Packers and blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I've talked to Big Cat about this. I don't care. Like, you can make fun of it all you want. That is Packers football. That is NFL football. That is football, period. I don't want a dome on my stadium ever in my life.
But we have the technology now. You have scoreboards there. Like you don't not have a scoreboard because it's old. Like it's old school.
Oh, you got to keep score. I understand that. That's
we want
fine.
Curly Lambeau's nephew up there putting up. I don't know. I think the modern amenities. I don't know. I was with you.
Benches, for God's sakes, and you're talking about a roof. What? Come on.
I like it. Listen, once I went into the Minnesota stadium, I'm like, yeah, maybe a dome would be cool. Like it is kind of nice.
I hate that stadium. It's plastic. It is soulless. I love Lambeau Field. Leave it alone. You do whatever you need to do. I understand. And I get it, because you're dealing with like Soldier Field, which, had this amazing vista and incredible.
Yeah, once you've already ruined it. Yeah.
You've already placed a donut or a spaceship or whatever you want to call it, like just plopped it on top, and it's terrible. And you've been in the press box. It's like the worst view from a press box in the NFL. Like whatever.
They really botched that, and they didn't lean into the columns and all that stuff.
Or anything.
Now, by the way,
horrible.
And what's funny is I got into somehow I'm on Flat Earth TikTok for whatever reason. Like I'm like, why? And like this idiot shows up all the time, and he's like, look at Chicago. God. Like, where did these columns from Soldier Field come from? Like, I don't know. Somebody built them. Like, I don't know. Like, people back in the day used to make stuff. Amazing. Now they make TikTok videos.
They're saying, look, so this dude's contention is that it's like Stonehenge, like some monks. Like
there's some sort of Stonehenge thing. Like, there was some advanced civilization that made these columns at Soldier Field and then bailed. And I'm like, how did the Bears get? That's the reason why. That's how.
I will say though, the Bears doing that to their stadium meant they had to play in Champaign for that. Was a season? Was it 2 seasons, 1 season? We have one of the 2 seasons, but I think it was a Monday Night Football game where we had the most gorgeous pass that Brett Favre ever threw to Donald Driver for like 85 yards for a touchdown in Champaign. That was a great game. I love that.
It's like when the Vikings. This is also a Favre thing, but like we end Favre's career at the Gopher Stadium. Devin Hester returns a kick.
I wanted to say, wasn't it? That's right, because I was thinking it was in New England, but you're right. No, he got hurt in New England, but then he came back and he played. Was that right? Yeah, in Minnesota.
It was a primetime game. Yeah, in Minnesota.
It was primetime, and it was outside because it was Gopher Stadium. That's right. And then he got hit. He hit his head off the turf, and he got taken out of the game, and that was his last game. That's right. Well remembered.
Maybe we should play outside. That was some fun
I'm
stuff.
saying, man, that's football. This ain't the ice capades, to quote Brett.
Yeah, it's funny too. And like going to like SoFi Stadium, it was off-putting because I went and saw Arsenal play at SoFi Stadium, and it was the first time I was offended by the dome. Where I'm like, this does not seem right.
Wait, are you an Arsenal fan? Oh no.
Yeah, you know this.
That makes I couldn't remember, but you are, aren't you? See, that's so
of course.
Perfect. You're Arsenal, I'm Chelsea, you're Bears, I'm Packers. This is like it's perfect. But we're both Depeche Mode, so that's good.
Depeche Mode, it's so good. I'm gonna start sending you the videos where I do critiques.
Please
because if you look at the original Just Can't Get Enough video, I timed it. I'm like, Vincent Clark gets so much screen time outside of Dave Gahan. He gets the most screen time.
Yep.
Fletcher's wasted. You could just tell. Like he's checked out. And Martin Gore cannot hide his contempt for how much he hates this song. Just like, this is the worst. Why am I in this band? One of us has got to go.
What's so funny is he literally slagged that song off in the promo lead up to the latest album, like 40 years later.
I think he's now now they've got a full body of work.
Well, he knows they play it, people go nuts, whatever, but like he still hates that song. It's hilarious.
Once Alan Wilder saved the band, then he can finally
it was just Alan Wilder's birthday the other day.
Yeah, that's right.
Shout out.
Shout
out to the Sonic.
Shout out to Alan Wilder. One of my favorite members of that band, even back in the day.
Absolutely.
So let's go back though to Chicago. I'll keep you here for a couple of minutes. Just to remind everybody, Shawne Merriman will be joining us here. What do you think I know that like you were very I love how your view of the Packers is very grounded and realistic. Grounded and realistic is not something that describes me. But what should Bears fans be looking for from the team this season? And what do you think is like a realistic expectation? What would you, if you were consulting, you were like, hey, this is what you guys should really be worried about. Don't stop talking about the playoffs or the Super Bowl or whatever. This is what should be focused on. What should the Bears be focusing on this year?
It's hard to say because Bears fans are so unrealistic each and every offseason. Like my mentions are just filled with like the most absurd takes. But I will say, from Bears fans, but I will say now, like I intimated earlier, man, that defense is legit, and I have seen nothing to say that like they're not going to pick up right where they left off. So I think that is going to keep you in a lot of games, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to live with some mistakes. You're going to have to live with some young quarterback taking his lumps, throughout the first month, 2 months, whatever. And I'm not saying that like you're going to replicate what the Packers did last year, but I think that's, somewhat realistic as far as if this kid can come in and get a grasp of, okay, the speed of the game, what defenses are trying to do against him and take things away from him, things that he probably leaned on in college, though a lot of his college tape is filled with just these amazing escape, get outside, make something happen plays. I think that's only going to take you so far, especially early in your NFL career. I think the Bears are primed to at least make some noise because they are going to be a tough out each and every week because of their defense. I don't, again, for a moment think that this is a team that's going to get rolled, any given week. But I do think you're going to take your lumps, especially early on offense. And I think end of the year, I would suspect the Bears are probably third in the division is my guess right now. I've got the Packers, the Lions, the Bears, and the Vikings. But
the Vikings,
again, so much can transpire throughout an offseason. But training camp alone, I mean, it's a litany of injuries, right? And like all of a sudden, things can be turned upside down. But right now, on paper, sitting here in June, that's how I see it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. We're looking at it right now with like we're playing Madden with no injuries, and we're just kind of taking it that way of like this is a perfect scenario with nothing going on because so many things can change over the course of the season, and that's a fair assessment. And so I asked though because Caleb, I love I don't mean this. When I say this, I don't mean to slam Justin Fields or anything like that. But he was more stoic. Like he made Bud Grant look like Jim Carrey. You know what I'm saying? Like he was so stoic. Caleb has been the exact opposite. you know,
Right.
and he's really embracing it. He was doing the fans were he was not saying Packers sucks, but he was
I
doing
know
his
he was
thing.
enjoying it though. He was enjoying it.
He loved it, and
But here's
he
the
does the
thing,
press
he's got to
conference.
do all that now. He's got to enjoy everything. You're talking about the press conference stuff, right? He's got to do all that now because he knows he's going to get ruined by the Bears. He's a quarterback. He's in Chicago. This is how this works. This is history. This is just the universe. It's how we operate. You know this. You're going to say all this stuff and try and be like, you know, optimistic or whatever, but you know he's going to get ruined. That's Chicago. That's the Bears. That's how this works.
Oh, it's different though. I still feel it's different.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sure.
You know, there were many a year.
You're old enough. 3 years rather than 2. Okay, it's different.
You're old enough to remember. It wasn't always this way for both teams.
It's
both
cyclical.
teams.
I know. I was just watching the other day. This is true. I was just watching like some old horrific 80s Packers stuff. Like, and I'm telling you, man, you talk about knowing, you talk about history. The fact that we would roll up against the Bears twice a year when I was a kid, and I knew we were going to lose. Like, that's where I think most Bears fans probably are right now with the Packers because we've won 10 in a row, etc. And I know they talk a big game, but I know deep in their heart they know they're probably going to lose. But yes, you're right. It's cyclical, right? And there will be a moment where it changes, and all of a sudden, Bears will be on top, and the Packers will be losing. I don't see that arriving anytime soon.
All right. Well, I hope it's sooner than you think. But want to thank you for being here. I'm glad we were able to get this settled. I'm glad that you're back safe in the United States. Your Twitter account is back and ready to go. And I always enjoy your content. I always think that you're a great follow. I also follow you on Instagram, so I can see your family a little bit too.
I'm right there with you, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you do because, like I said before, like yes, you are the #1 Packers fan troll, but I know you, right, and I know how you approach it. And I know your actual kind of views, and you do a great job, dude. You both like online and with all that stuff, but also on TV. Everything you do, I really appreciate it, and I think you're excellent.
Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I'm going to send you, because I don't know if I have your phone number. I'll send you my phone number. I've got a great take on the In Excess original Sin video that you got to see. Are you an In Excess person?
I love In Excess.
Okay, I can't wait. Okay, you're gonna end up on a text thread, and I apologize in advance, but you're gonna love it. But we love having you on here. We'll get you back on sooner. We won't let a long gap go again. But thanks so much for being here.
It's been a year. Thanks. Let's do it sooner than that. Absolutely.
And give love to the family. Love seeing the girls grow up online. So you're doing a great job.
Back at you, brother. And, back at you.
Thank you. All right. Well, there he goes. The great Aaron Nagler. We love talking to him. Again, I know this might have been a little bit too much Packer talk for some of you, but it's good to get an outside perspective. And which is what we love to do. We listen, we can sit, Braggs and I can sit here and we can do the meatball island and be an echo chamber, but it's nice to go out there and find somebody who's intelligent, who knows what they're talking about, which is why we like having Aaron on the show. And it's also why we like having our next guest on the show. He was one of my favorite players in the NFL for a while. I had season tickets to the Chargers. Well, 4-game package, but I would drive down to San Diego to go see this guy play. And so it's a great thrill for me to be able to call him a friend and to bring him on the show. So please welcome the great Shawne Merriman, who is going to be joining us here right now. Shawn, so good to see you again. Sorry for bumping you last week, but it's great to have you on right now. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Good to see you. I feel like, we always plan on catching up at some point in time. And then next thing you know, 6 months, a year go by and we don't get a chance to do this, man. So it's cool.
No. It's always good to see you and always good to talk to you. Really love what you've been doing. Want to talk a little bit about Lights Out. Is it Lights Out 7 that's coming up?
17.
17. Geez, I'm underselling it. We'll talk about that in a moment, but that's going to be coming up on Saturday. But I wanted to bring you on today to talk a little bit about Caleb Williams, because you obviously know what it's like to be a star player. You know, when you joined the Chargers, you were immediately, somebody that people took notice of. So now you see what Caleb Williams has been doing with the Chicago Bears, and you see him out there interacting with the fans, having some fun at press conferences. Do you like if you were playing with the Bears, would you appreciate that from your quarterback, or is that something where you're like, hey, dial it down a little bit?
No, and actually it goes against with the whole character issues, and this guy is, he doesn't talk to people. he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do because he's defeating all the bad words pre-draft, right?
Yeah.
That this guy's he's not good with his teammates. He only cares about himself. Well, guess what? That's smashed now already because we're seeing now that this guy gets out there, he's talking to fans, he's around people, he's a likable person, and so look, I think that there's a give and take with that, right? So you can do all the fan favorite charity, do all that stuff, but it has to match your play. Right. So if he goes out there and he plays well and he keeps doing what he's doing right now, it'll turn into be one of the best decisions that the Chicago Bears made in a very long time. And I'm happy for the kid, man, because I think that he was getting unwarranted hate, man, like unwarranted hate, like for no reason. OK, he's a little different. He does stuff his own way. No problem with that. But you can't deny that the dude can play. Right. You can't deny that part of it. So I'm glad to see that people get a chance to see him in a different light and let up on all the negative talk that was happening with him before the draft.
No, I'm glad you brought that up because it seems like forever ago that people were talking about like, oh, he's a bad dude or like none of that. And even if it's PR generated or whatever, which is now the myth of like, they're doing this. I don't, okay, but he's up, he has the presence of mind to do this. But in any event, when you look at this Bears team though, and, Keenan Allen is now a part of this wide receiver room that includes DJ Moore and first-round draft pick Rome Odunze. It's hard to imagine a quarterback or even think back to a quarterback that has been given such a great opportunity at the start of his career. What is a realistic expectation for Caleb Williams this year? Because, this is a team that won 7 games last year. This isn't a 1-15 team. This is a team that actually was knocking on the door of the playoffs last year. What should be the expectation for the Bears?
Well, let me tell you this. When you're the number 1 draft pick, they're going to want him to go out there and complete every single pass, no interceptions, no mistakes, right? And so the expectations is he's still a rookie. I don't care where he was drafted. He's still a rookie. But what you want to start to see is some of those plays that wasn't made last year, now you're seeing an uptick, right? Him being able to go out and complete some of these passes, him going out, those games that they lost, within 7 points, those close games, can he go and finish those games out? Because those 7 wins that they had last year could easily turn into 10, right? Because that small margin error, you got one guy on your team that has the capability of going out there winning those games. But man, people's expectation of this dude is going to be so high, right? Because let's face it, he's hated on. He's hated on for whatever reason. I think that there's a bit of jealousy, right? You got a kid who's driving around in a Lamborghini or Ferrari when he was driving around in college. He got a big NIL deal, and so he's coming in with that level of a little bit of hate. But the expectations for Bears fans is, let's see if he can go out and pick up these couple games that we couldn't win with Justin Fields last year. If he's able to do that in year 1, that is a big success. He's going to throw interceptions. He's going to make some bad reads. He's going to get rushed around. They're going to blitz package him. He's going to do some rookie things. That's to be expected. But if he can go out and squeeze out a couple more wins than they did last year because Justin Fields couldn't get it done, that is a big win for a rookie season. Yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up because I try not to, to be unfair to Justin Fields or take shots. I don't want it to come off like you're taking shots, but there were 3 games last year where the Bears had a 90% chance of winning in the fourth quarter, could not get it done. You win 2 of those, you have a 9-win season. You're looking at the playoffs. Who knows what would have happened? So it is something, like there is a chance right here. And I think that he's ready. And I think he's up for the challenge because like you said, this is a player that we've seen over the last number of years. And it does bring a lot of notoriety. And I remember when you were playing, and I always used to get really defensive about this, when people would take shots at you. How did you deal with that? Because a lot of it's unfair. Like there was nothing you were doing. You were like, I thought it was cool. Like the lightning bolt and everything. It was a celebration. It wasn't an in-your-face thing. It was just like you just celebrating a great play. There was a lot of unfair shots taken at you. How did you handle that?
I think, man, that was I missed that the most. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, going in and having a 2 or 3 sack game in the Raiders Stadium or the Chiefs Stadium, got 2-3 sacks, and you doing that dance, the whole crowd is booing you. I mean, even the times that we lost in 2006 against the Patriots, the whole entire team did the lights out dance. And so at the time, it pisses you off, like, oh man, this is not cool or whatever. You go back on it, man, and for you to have that emotional effect on people enough to piss them off, it means you did your job. So I think it's a little bit different in my case because I enjoyed being that villain when I went to other people's stage. I loved it. It was nothing more that I loved in that part of it. I think that for Caleb, his hatred and things are coming because of all the things that was said about him. Not was true, just was said. I expected the boos to come. I expected, the hatred and people talk trash because I did it on purpose, right? It was one of those things I enjoyed.
You kind of had a pro wrestler mentality right there.
I did. I had a very, very pro wrestler mentality. But I think that, with my case, it's different. Obviously, been on the defense side of the ball. He's just going to be, because he's a quarterback. We all know how the NFL and the teams value their quarterbacks now. He's just going to be on a constant scrutiny. And I hope the best for the kid. I think he's going to be amazing. I think he's going to be, with that team around him with Keenan and DJ, former Terp DJ Moore, and that team they got built around him right now. I think this is a 9+ win team with him just walking into the season.
Yes, I love it. See, I'm with you. I think 9 wins is the floor. I would probably lean towards 10, but you never know the way the things are going to go in the NFL. Talk about the addition of Keenan Allen. He goes from Los Angeles, where he was the undisputed number 1 guy. Now he's going to a team that has DJ Moore, who last year had a great season. They used the 9th overall pick for Rome Odunze. How do you think Keenan Allen's going to fit in there? I've met him before. I didn't have I don't know him that well, but I've met him. He seems like a great guy. Is he a great locker room guy? Is he going to be somebody who's going to be able to, and even if he doesn't get all the targets, is still going to be able to flourish and do things well?
The best thing to happen to Caleb Williams is having Keenan Allen there. Let me tell you. For a lot of different reasons. He's a locker room guy. He's a tone setter. And for somebody that has been in the NFL that long, this dude still works, man. Like, he's not coming out to practice, pulling the vet moves, taking a couple reps here and there, doing rep. Like, Keenan still works. And in my opinion, I always thought that Keenan should be a lifer, right? I thought he should retire the charge or whatever, but he came off of his biggest year. Right. Yeah. And so he's coming, even though he's up in age, he's coming off his biggest year. And so the Bears are willing to step up. And I think that, Keenan Allen, he's a safety blanket for more than one reason toward Caleb Williams. I don't think this is just hey, we want Keenan Allen. I feel like, hey, Keenan's played, for with Phillip Rivers. He's played with Justin Herbert. And now he has Caleb Williams, so he can go out and talk to him. Hey, when I run this route and I start the time, because Keenan's route running ability still doesn't get the credit it deserves. Keenan is, at this age, in my opinion, is the best route runner in the NFL. And so with him coming in, being able to get in Caleb's ear and say, hey, when I go this way, do that. When you go over here and I go out, the timing of it. I don't think this is a Bears, hey, we need Keenan Allen so bad because we think he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. I think they brought him in strictly to say, hey, we got this young buck over here. We need you to pull him by the ear. You share some of this experience, and he's a safety blanket for Caleb. I think I think they brought him in for that reason more than anything else. I'm not saying that Keenan can't play anymore. Don't get me wrong. He's still going to be very effective. Yeah. But to be able to get in Caleb's ear, a young guy like that, it's going to be invaluable.
And I thought that the move of Caleb Williams not to challenge him for the number 13, just to let that go. I think there's a level of respect. And again, I think it goes back to the things that people say about Caleb Williams, like this. He's obviously not a diva. He's giving deference and respect to Keenan Allen. Like, no, sir, you have 13. I will switch my number, even though I'm the number 1 overall pick. I thought that said something about him.
There's a lot of things I think we're going to uncover about Caleb Williams that we heard pre-draft in his time. Like I said, it goes back to having just the hatred of his success in college, the things that he was gifted as far as NIL and all that stuff. I think that if Caleb Williams goes out and have a great year, there needs to be an apology tour by a lot of people. Like, yes. I hope that Caleb kept all those receipts, and I don't know what kind of guy he is or what, but me, every video, every clip of everybody calling me everything they want, I'm reposting. I'm having it up on my refrigerator, my wall, and use that as inspiration because, the hate he got was unwarranted, man. I just didn't understand that from somebody who's going to be a future number 1 draft pick. And boy, if he goes up and lives anything close to that hype he's gotten come out of college, apologies will be around the earth.
There will be like junior high kids from Wheeling to South Bend walking around with phone cases that look like this, painted nails. If he wins, because I remember when McMahon was playing so well, And it was revolutionary when McMahon came out and he was wearing his headband and sunglasses. Like, parents didn't like that. Like, that's how long ago this was. But then every kid wanted to do it. So I think that Caleb has that kind of opportunity to change everything like that. So I'm looking forward to it. I think that that's going to be. I can't wait. I'm with you, and I don't think that Caleb needs to do it, because people like me will be out there be like, oh no, remember when you said this, sir? Like, I remember. Like, listen, a lot of those posts are bookmarked in my Twitter account. I will be the one that will be cashing in a lot of those receipts. While we have you, speaking of a Charger connection, Jim Harbaugh is taking over here for the LA Chargers. I'm kind of excited about this. I'm interested about your perspective. I think that, man, I'm excited to see. I hope Matt Eberflus does well, but I was kind of the mind like, hey, let's bring Harbaugh back to Chicago, but he's in Los Angeles. He's with the Chargers. What are the expectations for him down in LA?
So I was at the facility, the practice facility on Monday, and I want to say this: I don't know how the season's going to go. I don't know what the record's going to be, but I'm not joking. When I walked in that building, it was a different vibe. It was a completely different vibe that I've seen in that building in over a decade. And I'm talking about guys walking around with a purpose, guys feeling enthusiastic, upbeat. I mean, they were walking around. What you can tell something was different in that building. And I'm telling you, man, like, when you have a coach like Jim Harbaugh that comes in, that brings that identity with them, brings that messaging, bring that this is who we are, it resonates through the entire team, and it starts at the top. I don't want to take a shot at Brandon Staley, but he just didn't have it. He didn't have that with him. He didn't have that level of leadership. And so when you talk to the guys now, that confidence level is different. When you talk to guys now, they're ready to work. They're ready to compete. They are very locked in and focused. And I talked to probably about 20 different guys on Monday. And I talked to J.K. Dobbins, talking about his Achilles. I got a chance to meet Big Joe Alt. And now when I say Big Joe Alt, that dude is massive.
Did you get photographed with him?
I did.
And like, you're 6'4", like, you're a big guy. Yeah, that's a big dude.
I was under his armpit, and it made me feel very uncomfortable. It was one of those. But just going around, even to the staff, man, it's just, there's a different equipment, guys. There's a different level of confidence walking around in that building that you haven't seen there in a long time. And so when you talk about coaches, man, that move the needle, he's it. You feel, and I understand why. I see now why he has these drastic changes as soon as you walk in somewhere, because he's a brick by brick kind of a person. Like, you don't hear him talk about Super Bowl. You don't hear him talk about playoffs. He's trying to get the most out of you today. And I think that what's going to happen, there's going to be a weeding out process when it comes to camp. Camp is going to be rough for those guys. And at some point, it's going to be, hey, who wants to be here? Who wants to be gone? And I think that he just brings that attitude. And I text him. I texted him maybe 2 weeks ago. And I said, man, thanks. I appreciate that. Bringing that identity back and making, us former players, the fans, everybody's feeling confident, because this confidence has been gone out of that locker room, out of that building, out of this organization for a very long time, man. And everybody's back confident again. And that's where it starts.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. And now, I'll be watching them with interest. Well, I'm, right down the road. I'll probably end up hitting up a couple of Chargers games this year. Hopefully they'll turn it around for the Chargers. Interesting to see how that's going to play out. But let's talk now about Lights Out 17. It's hard to believe. The organization that you put together, I know that, you were involved. You love the professional wrestling. You had a little bit of a flirtation with the WWE, but now you've turned your attention. We've talked about this before. The events you put together are always so well done, and I always appreciate it. And this week we got, who is it? It's Aaron versus Bailey in Lights Out 17. It's down in Temecula. What's the casino?
Casino Palma. Palma Valley, Casino Palma. We'll be live at 7 p.m. And this is the thing. So I just launched Lights Out Sports TV, my streaming service. And so it's a free. I launched a free sports streaming service that we'll be live on. So the fights now will be live on Lights Out Sports TV, which is available on Roku and Apple TV, Amazon Fire, iOS, Android. So any major TV platform you have, phone carrier, we're on it. Lights Out. So everybody download Lights Out Sports TV. But we have World Poker Tour in there. We got chess, TNA wrestling. I don't know if you guys saw, about 3 months ago, I did the pay-per-view with TNA. which was massive. So they're also on the app. But yeah, man, it's all free. We'll be live on Lights Out Sports TV at 7 p.m. Pacific this Saturday.
Who are we looking at? So Aaron or Bailey, like who are these guys? What are their stories? I'll be honest, I don't follow MMA. I love the big fights. Like I love when there's an event going on. Like I'm an event person. What am I looking for? Because I have the Lights Out app for, like you said, for TNA. My friend Eric Young wrestles in there. And of course, Tom Hannafin does play-by-play. So I love TNA to me. I mean, I know I like AEW, and AEW is coming on right now, but like I like TNA. I think it's a great organization. I think they do wrestling right. I think it's a perfect fit for you. But if I'm going to sit down, I'm going to watch this fight on Saturday. I want to know, who am I rooting for? What am I looking for? Who are these guys?
Yeah, this main event. So Tommy Aaron right now is our champion. And also Tommy Aaron is Tony Ferguson's guy.
Oh, okay.
And so he just had a big knockout over at BKFC. So he left us, had a fight with BKFC, and it came back. So he's our champion right now. But this kid Jordan Bailey is a San Diego favorite, man. He is loved. This dude sold so many tickets already because everybody's coming to see him. So we thought this would be a big matchup. Tommy has done great for us. He's coming up that big one, BKFC, and we matched him up with the biggest local favorite there is in San Diego. So when we have these cards, man, what I try to do when we go to a certain city is 80% of the card is locals, right?
Yeah.
We'll fly some.
Yeah, because your last show was in Long Beach, right? And you had that.
Long Beach. Yeah. So we try to get these local guys up, and also too, Jared Vandera, who also fought in the UFC, he's on the co-main event as well. And so every fight, man, we got about 2 or 3 guys who have an opportunity to go to UFC, right? They have a couple more wins with us, then UFC will start looking at them. And that was the whole goal of me getting into this industry, man. If we can start being a true funnel, a real funnel to the UFC, and UFC is looking at us and saying, man, you guys go and went over at Lights Out, you got a shot here at the UFC. That's, to me, that's a win, right? If we can be a platform to the UFC with these guys, because we all know where they want to go. Like I went to University of Maryland, I love Maryland to death, but I wasn't trying to stay there forever, right? I'm trying to get to the NFL. And so, me being a former athlete, man, if we can provide a place where these guys have a real shot to go to the UFC, that's a big win for us. And every fight now at this point, we know that the UFC is looking at some of our guys, and we hope to get them there to that point.
No, it's great. It's kind of like NXT. Like I've always appreciated like NXT or some of these things. Like, we're watching guys on the come up, and I always appreciate that, and I always love the because the guys are going out there and just really trying to prove themselves, and I think it makes for a great entertaining product, a great entertainment product and everything. And like, I got small kids. My kid was running around here. If anybody heard the noise in the background, that was my son trying to be background white noise for us. But that's what the best part of this is. And I love big events, and I love watching the fights. And, even you don't have to follow all this stuff all the time, but you know what? It's a great product. The app is great. I would recommend everybody download it right now and go watch TNA, watch everything else. And we'll be watching Lights Out 17 this weekend. Should be a lot of fun. But Shawn, want to thank you for coming on tonight. It's always great to have you on, and we'll have to get together in person real soon. I got to come out to one of these fights. Actually, I'm gonna beg for some tickets one of these times.
No, done deal. And so our next one after this one is July 27th back in Long Beach. So maybe we can get you out to that one. And we got a stat card already. I can't even wait to announce that one, because we got some guys who just recently had some fights in the UFC who's coming to fight a couple fights for us. So July 27th after this one. But this Saturday, Casino Palma, get your tickets at lightsoutaccept.com. So anybody down in the SoCal area, if you can make it, we got 14 fights. And if you can't, make sure you download Lights Out Sports TV on all major TV platforms.
All right. Well, I can't recommend it enough. Thank you once again for being here. And we'll talk soon, and we'll see you out in Long Beach next month. You
guys, brother. Thanks for having me, man.
All right. Thank you for being here. There he goes, the great Shawne Merriman. Big thanks to Aaron Nagler for being here, talking a little Packers with us, talking about some UFC fighting. And for right now, you know what? The Bears are off for a couple of weeks. We got a little bit of a gap before training camp, but we will still be continuing to be here on Wednesday night. We'll get a Minnesota Vikings perspective next week, and then we'll start looking ahead. We'll start diving into some of the fantasy implications of things like that. So we're not going anywhere. We appreciate everybody being here. This was a great show tonight. Thanks so much to everybody. Thanks to Anello and Sammy. And so in any event, that's all we got. Bear down. And Sammy, go ahead and play us out.
And And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.